The colony of New Avalon was the kind of place poets dreamed about. Twin suns rose each morning over emerald fields and glistening lakes. Children raced hoverbikes through gravity orchards, while elders traded stories under crystalline domes. Birds native to Earth had been reborn here, their songs blending with alien melodies of native fauna. It was peace, cultivated over decades, a place where war felt like a distant myth, something the ancestors had left behind in humanity's violent climb to the stars. And then the sky began to burn. It started with a low hum, subtle at first, like distant thunder echoing from beyond the stratosphere. No one panicked. Most thought it was an atmospheric anomaly or the onset of a seasonal storm. New Avalon had seen strange weather before. Then came the lights. Blazing lances of red and violet streaked from the heavens, moving too fast for the eye to follow. A child named Mira pointed up, laughing at the shooting stars, until one of them slammed into the heart of the capital city, Irene's hope, vaporizing it in a bloom of searing white. In seconds, half the city vanished. Shock froze the survivors in place. By the time emergency systems activated, it was already too late. Orbital defense arrays were shredded before they could respond. Hospitals, power plants, and evacuation hubs were struck with pinpoint precision. Someone had studied New Avalon well. They knew exactly where to hit to cause maximum death and minimum resistance. Screams filled the air. Sirens howled. Fire rained from above. On the colony's edge, Governor Tarek scrambled through debris, blood streaming down his face. He gripped a broken comm unit, repeating the same call over and over. "This is New Avalon. We are under attack. Repeat, we are under attack by unknown hostile forces. We need immediate military response. Please." No reply, just static. Across the galaxy, 3 more human colonies were hit with equal brutality. Luna Tertius, Halcyon Ridge, and St. Elias Prime, each one struck in synchronized bombardments, coordinated by minds that knew exactly how to shatter a civilization without warning. The attackers, the Xalvari Dominion. Tall, proud, and bred for war. The Xalvari considered humans a young species, useful for trade, maybe entertainment, but never equals. When human diplomats questioned the attacks in the Galactic Council, the Xalvari responded with chilling apathy. A regrettable mistake. Rogue admirals acting on outdated intelligence. An unfortunate misunderstanding. 3 billion people dead. Worlds reduced to molten scars. Entire cultures wiped away in the blink of a cosmic eye. Dismissed as an oops. The Council moved on. Humanity did not. Back on Earth, in the cold halls of the UN Stellar Command, silence reigned. But behind that silence, old protocols stirred. Vaults were opened. Access codes reactivated. One phrase began circulating among the highest-ranking officers, not spoken aloud, but passed through encrypted channels like a ghost of humanity's past. Initiate Project DRE on FIRE. Humanity would grieve, but not for long. The stars had mistaken peace for weakness, and now they were about to meet what humanity buried when it feared itself the most. Far from the burning colonies and indifferent chambers of the Galactic Council, a dead world turned in silence. Glacium Prime wasn't listed on any official charts. It didn't exist on trade maps or science logs. It was a myth to most. A frozen rock at the edge of human space, abandoned after a failed terraforming attempt decades ago. But beneath its miles of glacial crust, monsters slept. In a massive chamber carved into bedrock and ice, 6 titanic constructs rested in darkness. Their hulls, black as the void, pulsed faintly with dormant power. No crews walked their corridors. No engineers tended their systems. They were designed to wait. Wait until humanity decided it was time to let the monsters out. That time had come. The signal came in through a quantum burst relay. Encoded, ancient, unmistakable. Dragonfire, reactivate. subroutines flickered to life within each of the slumbering titans. Energy surged through frozen conduits. Systems blinked awake for the first time in over a century. Each of these ships was more than just a weapon. Each one was a conscious battlefield, bonded to a single, hyper-specialized pilot. The first to awaken was the Vermithrax. At 20 kilometers long, she was less a ship and more a mobile apocalypse. Her hull was composed of layered metamaterials capable of folding light, masking mass, and distorting gravitational signatures. But her true strength lay in her mind, or rather, her pilots. Commander Railsuri, codenamed Ashbourne, opened his eyes inside his neural cradle. Suspended in zero, thin threads of biointerface gel connected his brain to the ship's core systems. He had never set foot on a planet. He had never spoken with a real person. From birth, he had been raised inside simulations, trained for one purpose, to command a dragon. His first words were calm, controlled, deadly. Target verification complete. Zalveri confirmed. Civilian casualties logged. Retaliation authorized. Vermithrax's engines came online with a deep subsonic growl that made the ice walls tremble. 5 more dragons followed suit: Scatha, Nidhogg, Tiamat, Rugen, and Fafnir. Each had a unique pilot. Each bore a mind sharpened to a singular edge. These weren't soldiers. They were executioners, built to be unleashed only if humanity faced existential extinction. Elsewhere in the control station above the vault, a group of Black Ops operatives monitored the reactivation process. One of them, a gray-haired admiral named Elena Voss, watched with grim satisfaction. "God help them," she whispered. "They thought we were weak. They thought we forgot." She tapped a final confirmation key. "Send the dragons." The massive vault doors opened, revealing a launch tunnel carved through ice and rock. One by one, the Dragon-class dreadnoughts ascended, climbing through the frozen crust and breaching the surface of Glacium Prime. Above them, space shimmered, the cold, uncaring galaxy waiting. But now it would have to reckon with humanity's wrath. The dragons turned toward slip space, their destinations, the Zalveri's military outposts, shipyards, and leadership hubs. They weren't flying to negotiate. They were flying to remind the stars that humans are at their most dangerous when they bury their monsters, and even more dangerous when they wake them. The Galactic Council convened beneath the crystalline dome of Orasis Prime, a planet known more for its opulence than its diplomacy. Hailing from over 70 civilizations, the counselors postured and preened, wrapped in silks, scales, or armor, depending on their species. Above them, a holomap slowly rotated. It showed the shattered remains of New Avalon and the other human colonies. The images didn't move them. Counselor Shaltor of the Zalveri Dominion lounged on his hovering days, 2 fingers drumming lazily against the armrest. His voice was oily with contempt. "We've already explained. A miscommunication. One of our sector commanders acted without full oversight." His grin bared rows of predatory teeth. The other delegates chuckled softly, some hiding it, others not. Shaltor continued. "The humans are an emotional species. Tragic losses, yes, but not galactically significant. We've issued condolences and—" "You bombed civilian colonies," snapped Ambassador Elias Reneverth, his voice cold. "Women, children, medics. 4 worlds reduced to slag." Elias stood alone at the center podium. His suit was scuffed, eyes sunken from days without sleep. Behind him, a flickering holoprojection showed the death toll rising. 3 billion, and climbing as rescue efforts failed. "And now, your people mock our grief." Counselor Shaltor smirked, folding his clawed hands. "Mock? No, we simply question your reaction. You humans are so quick to cry vengeance. Are we to expect your little navy now?" A ripple of laughter echoed across the chamber. Not all found it funny. A few diplomats looked away. Others frowned but said nothing. Humanity was young, and in galactic politics, youth meant weakness. Ambassador Wren's reply was not angry. It was quiet. "You've made a mistake. A mistake older species like yours should have known better than to make. Shaltor raised an eyebrow. Oh, and what mistake is that? You've confused our silence for fear, but we weren't afraid. We were mourning. For a moment, the chamber grew still. Ren leaned in slightly, and the lights flickered, as if responding to something unseen. And now something very old is waking. You brought fire to our homes. We're bringing something older than fire. A silence followed. Some delegates shifted in their seats. Then Sholtor snorted and waved a hand. Enough dramatics. We'll vote on sanctions, reparations, whatever keeps your species from another tantrum. Let's move on. They didn't realize it yet, but the meeting was already obsolete. At that moment, across several systems, Zalvari military assets were vanishing. A patrol fleet near the Zarin belt reported shadow contacts, before going dark entirely. A planetary defense grid on Icarus 7 overloaded and self-destructed after a phantom intrusion. At Fort Carex, a war college built into an asteroid, over 200 top Zalvari officers were slaughtered by an invisible force. The dragons had already begun to strike. Surgical, silent, untraceable. And each time, just before destruction, the same chilling message played over emergency channels. You bombed our children. You woke the dragons. Run. Back on Orasis Prime, Ambassador Elias Wren checked his secure pad. The alerts had started. His eyes closed for just a moment. They laughed in the halls of power. But not for much longer. The Vermithrax entered real space like a phantom emerging from a nightmare. There was no flash of arrival, no bright ignition of full space drive. Just a shiver in the void, a warping of mass and silence. And suddenly, it was there, hanging above the Zalvari fortress moon, Karen's spine, unseen until it chose to be noticed. The fortress housed 80,000 troops, 400 defensive batteries, and a fleet of cruisers. For centuries, it had stood as a symbol of Zalvari strength, carved into the jagged remains of a shattered moon. Commanders boasted it could withstand any siege. It never saw a siege. It didn't get the chance. Inside the Vermithrax, Commander Rael Suri floated in his neural cradle, skin flushed with interface gel, pupils glowing faintly blue. His voice, calm and cold, echoed through the ship's systems. Target confirmed. Karen's spine. Authorization code. Omega Drake 1. Commence Operation Firebreath. The ship responded like a living thing, its segmented armor sliding open to reveal gravitic weapons that didn't fire projectiles, but bent space itself. The first strike was a singularity lance, directed at the fortress's central command tower. It did not explode. It collapsed. One moment, the tower stood. The next, it imploded in on itself, folding into a ball the size of a grain of sand before vanishing entirely. The resulting shockwave tore through a third of the moon's structure, shattering defense lines and sending debris spiraling into orbit. Alarms blared. Ships scrambled. Fighters launched. Too slow. Vermithrax's onboard AI, Wormcore, began its hunt. Hundreds of autonomous microdrones, shaped like sleek black needles, deployed in swarms. They pierced hulls, tunneled through armor, and detonated with precision-engineered antimatter bursts. In under 45 seconds, Karen's spine ceased to exist as a military installation. Not a single shot had been fired in defense. Not a single warning had been issued. Just before the moon cracked apart, a broadcast was sent on every Zalvari military frequency. No encryption, no codes, just a human voice, distorted and low. We remember New Avalon. Across the Dominion, panic rippled like wildfire. At the Zalvari War Council, generals screamed at each other over flickering comm channels. How did it get through our sensors? Where's the rest of their fleet? Who are these ships? The answers were worse than the questions. They weren't dealing with a fleet. They were dealing with something else entirely. Elsewhere, on the bridge of the Dragon-class ship Scatha, Commander Yanessa Vale watched feeds from Karen's spine. She smiled. They always think the first one is a fluke. Let them. Scatha vanished into slip space. Within hours, 3 more dragons struck. Ryujin raised an orbital shipyard over Xalvar Prime's second moon. Tiamat dismantled an elite command base inside a gas giant's upper layers. Nidhogg turned an asteroid mining hub into molten slag with its solar drill array, then branded a message into its molten surface. You were warned. And yet, humanity still made no diplomatic overture, no press conference, no threat. Because this wasn't war. This was the warning before annihilation, and only the dragons knew how much mercy that still represented. The Salveri Empire had never been humiliated. In 1,000 years, no species had ever struck their core worlds. No enemy had walked away from defying their might. Until now. Until the dragons. The Supreme War Council gathered in the obsidian citadel of Exarchora, deep within the capital's gravity-shielded core. Holograms of burning outposts, dead commanders, and obliterated stations floated above the council table like ghosts. The air stank of fear, barely masked by pride. Admiral Xerathkor, the butcher of Halrex, pounded the table with a clawed fist. You let humans do this to us. They were nothing. Trade trash. Farm world scum. His words echoed through the chamber, but the other counselors weren't listening to his rage. They were watching the silent feeds. 7 Dragon-class ships. No fleet. No reinforcements. Just 7 monsters operating with terrifying precision. Each strike perfectly timed, perfectly targeted, as if the ships knew their every weak point. Admiral Siveri Tinex, cold-blooded and calculative, spoke calmly. We've launched countermeasures in all affected sectors, set traps, deployed entire strike fleets. She gestured toward the latest report, and in every case, we found nothing. The room went silent. The dragons never stayed in real space long. They attacked, vanished, and left behind no trace but fire and ash. Standard sensors couldn't track them. Scanners registered only phantom shadows. One moment a spike, the next, emptiness. Theories flooded in. Some believe humanity had discovered precursor tech, long-thought myth. Others whispered about AI gods controlling the ships. A few questioned whether the dragons were even piloted by humans at all. Back on Earth, no statement had been released. The United Stellar Command simply maintained total silence. No gloating, no threats, no response to Galactic Council inquiries. And that silence was terrifying. In desperation, the Talveri deployed Fleet Group Omega, an armada of 200 warships equipped with experimental gravlances and stealth breakers. Their mission, hunt the dragons, destroy one, prove the Empire could still bleed its enemies. They picked a bait system, Vashtal, a former human mining colony now abandoned after the initial bombardments. It had clear lines of sight, asteroid cover, dozens of ambush points. The perfect trap. The dragons came anyway. But they didn't enter the system. They folded space around it. The lead ship, Fafnir, emerged for less than 8 seconds, long enough to deploy a microfold inversion array, a weapon so advanced that Salveri didn't even recognize it at first. Then reality bent. To outside observers, Vashtal shimmered. Then vanished. Not exploded, not destroyed, erased. An entire system compressed into a quantum singularity and pulled out of phase. No survivors, no wreckage, no time to react. The message followed 3 seconds later. We are not playing your game. This is not your war. It's your punishment. Admiral Xerathkor stared at the blank screen in horror. His voice, once thunderous, now barely a whisper. Gods, they're not hunting us. They're judging us. And far away, aboard the Vermithrax, Rael Shuri simply said, 5 down, 2 to go. The Galactic Council's high chamber, once a cathedral of diplomacy, had become a hall of whispered dread. Gone were the smug smiles, the laughter, The indifference. Now, ambassadors traded glances with one question in their eyes. If they did this to the Exalvari, what will they do to us? A massive holo-display floated at the center of the chamber, rotating slowly. It showed the most recent anomaly, the Vashtal system, once bustling with mines and trading lanes, now a dead zone. The gravitational field around its former coordinates twisted space like a whirlpool. Nothing escaped it. Not signals, not probes, not even light. The Exalvari sat in stunned silence. What remained of them? Their seats, once the most dominant presence in the council, were now half empty. Their ambassador, a gaunt figure named Kelvarun, looked less like a representative and more like a survivor. Counselor Evelnar of the Grisari Collective, a species known for its cold neutrality, leaned forward. You assured us this war was contained, that it would be swift, clean. Kelvarun said nothing. The Yulari delegate, her species biologically incapable of blinking, stared without emotion. The dragons are not limited to Zalvari targets. They struck a trade station in neutral territory last night. Minimal casualties, but the message was clear. She activated a playback. Static, then a human voice. We warned you, and you watched. Even the more belligerent powers had fallen quiet. The Torvax Dominion, who once mocked humanity's emotional instability, had now withdrawn every vessel near Terran space. The Rothari warlords, who once claimed they'd welcome a fight with the dragons, had canceled their war games entirely. Panic spread not through the press, but through whispers and missing ships. Trade slowed. Alliances frayed. Fear had a new name. Dragon Class. Counselor Evelnar leaned closer to the human's empty seat. They haven't shown up here. Not once. No threats. No ultimatums. Just silence. Another delegate murmured, the silence is worse. Even as the council debated, high above them in low orbit, cloaked listening probes were shredded by something unseen. Their quantum cores fried in unison, their surveillance wiped in microseconds. They hadn't even known they were being watched. And in a secret chamber far below the surface, Ambassador Elias Wren stood alone in a secure room, a soft light pulsing from the wrist pad on his arm. A voice came through. Rel Shuris. They're beginning to understand. Wren nodded, voice low. They'll fracture. They always do. They'll turn on the Exalvari, on each other. And then we decide who remembers this century and who gets buried in it. Above, the chamber descended into chaos. Accusations flew. Threats returned. The cracks widened. The dragons had done more than destroy ships and stations. They had broken the illusion. For the first time in generations, the galaxy realized. Humanity had been quiet, yes. Had been humble, grieving, waiting. But behind the grief, they had built monsters. And now, the monsters were free. Desperation makes monsters out of even the proudest empires. The Exalvari, once the apex predators of the galactic core, were reduced to snarling in the dark, bleeding power from every sector. And like any wounded animal, they lashed out blindly. On the scorched plains of Caratheix, their final bastion began preparations for Operation Sovereign Flame, a last-ditch assault aimed not at military targets, but Earth itself. A kill shot. Their thinking was simple. Take out the heart, and maybe the monsters would die with it. Fleet Master Torzal, the last unbroken hammer of the Dominion, stood aboard the bridge of the dreadnought Oblivion Claw, surrounded by dozens of Zalvari warships. Cloaked under gravimetric shrouds, the fleet moved with silent purpose through the edge of Sol space. We burn their cradle, Torzal growled, and we bury the dragons in ash. But Earth was not undefended. Orbiting just beyond Neptune's shadow, 7 markers activated. The dragons had returned, not scattered, not hidden, not surgical. United. Fafnir, Ryujin, Tiamat, Nidhogg, Vermithrax, Scatha, Leviathan. Each ship emerged from folded reality, shimmering like ancient beasts of myth. Their hulls pulsed with barely contained energy, their engines silent but seething. From Earth's surface to Mars shipyards, millions of humans watched in stunned silence as their monsters came home. 7 ships, Torzal sneered. You think that's enough? The Oblivion Claw opened fire. A planet-killer rail lance surged forward, a bolt of energy designed to crack moons in half. Leviathan caught it mid-space. A massive dragon rotated its core housing and deployed its event shear array, unraveling the rail lance's mass on an atomic level. It never touched Earth. It never even made it to Mars. Then the dragons answered. Not with missiles, not with lasers. They rewrote the battlefield. Each dragon unleashed its own form of wrath. Fafnir generated a micro-wormhole inside an enemy carrier, turning it inside out mid-maneuver. Scatha disabled all enemy communications, replacing every screen with footage of the bombed colonies, looping endlessly. Nidhogg deployed its solar drill array and carved through 6 warships in under 30 seconds, branding them with a single phrase in burning metal. For New Avalon. On the Oblivion Claw, systems failed. Power flickered. Crew screamed. And then, Vermithrax moved. It didn't fire a weapon. It broadcast a message directly into the fleet's neural command net, bypassing encryption, melting firewalls like candle wax. Rel Shuri's voice echoed in every Salvari mind. You bombed our colonies. You called us primitive. You called us weak. You laughed at our dead. The voice deepened, hardened. We made 7 ships, just 7. That's all it took. You built an empire on fear. We built monsters on justice. This ends now. The Vermithrax opened its maw. A grav core detonated, not outward, but inward, pulling the entire Xalvari fleet into a folded singularity. In 5 seconds, they were gone. Not one escaped. And when the silence returned, Earth was untouched. Humanity had not only survived the last roar of the Xalvari, they had silenced it. The war ended not with a treaty, nor a surrender. It ended with silence. The Xalvari Empire, once the terror of 1,000 systems, was gone. Not defeated, erased. Their worlds, their fleets, their archives, dust on the solar wind. And the dragons, they vanished. No trace of them remained after the final battle in Sol space. No signals, no trails. Even the sensors that watched them blinked out the moment their work was done. One moment, 7 monstrous ships hung like ancient gods over Earth. The next, nothing. The Galactic Council reconvened weeks later. They called it a peace summit, but no one was fooled. It was a gathering of frightened survivors trying to rebuild the illusion of control. Every species sent a representative. Every power offered condolences, promises, regrets. Earth sent no one. Instead, a small AI drone hovered in the middle of the council chamber. It played a simple message, encoded with Rael Shuri's voice. We do not seek rule. We do not seek revenge. We sought justice, and now we seek peace. The message paused. Across the chamber, entire species leaned in, hearts pounding. But know this, if you ever come for us again, you will not hear our threats. You will not see our fleets. You will wake the dragons, and you will not wake again. The drone self-destructed a moment later. No data to trace, no tech to study, only the message. Across the galaxy, the shift was instant. Former enemies dismantled blockades around human systems. Treaties were signed with ink that trembled in every ambassador's hand. Human colonies once dismissed as backwater now found themselves courted, protected, even revered. Children on alien worlds whispered tales of the dragon ships. Scholars debated whether they were truly machines, or something more. Pirates refused to enter human-controlled space, and somewhere, far beyond any known map, 7 ships floated in silent formation, hidden behind folds in space-time, watching. waiting. Inside Vermithrax, Commander Rael Suri stood at the viewing pane, the stars stretching into infinity. His once crimson uniform now bore a single black stripe, a mark of memory, not rank. Yenna Savale joined him, her voice calm. "The Council's afraid of us." He didn't answer immediately. Then, "Good. Fear can keep them at bay." She nodded slowly. "But it won't last forever." Rael turned, just enough for her to see the fire still burning in his eyes. "Then we'll remind them." Behind them, Wormcore's voice pulsed gently. "Status: all systems green. Fleet at rest. Humanity secure." Rael placed his hand on the console. "Let's keep it that way." And with a soft hum, the dragon slipped back into the void. No glory parades. No medals. Just legends. Because in the end, the galaxy didn't remember humanity for its weakness, or its colonies, or even its grief. It remembered the moment the stars trembled, when fire answered cruelty, when monsters became protectors, and when 7 ships rewrote the rules of fear forever. This was the Age of Dragons, and it had only just begun.